Mel, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everyone, Cantonese Cat here. I'm going to go through four other additional minors here real quick. The first one I do have a position is ticker symbol CIFR, CIFR. I'm bullish on CIFR. Monthly chart shown here. You can see that price has just kind of been channeling up over here, really trying to push above this range over here. It's been having a little bit of a hard time pushing over the last year. It has been building a big giant volume shove over here as a result. And so far, if you just pull up some of the traditional indicators that I use, such as Bollinger Band, it looks like price just been staying about the, on the upper part of the Bollinger Band for about a whole year. It's still trying to lean up against the upper Bollinger Band and trying to push it up higher over time. And when it really does take off, I think price is going to end up being a little bit more impulsive, especially if it breaks above this range over here and this volume shove over here at around 550 or so. I think once your price is able to convincingly break above 550 or maybe a little bit higher, it could potentially go up to like 10, in a hurry. It does look like it's building up a lot of energy to do so over the last year or so. And when I see this, I was just like, hey, I'm gonna enter this because it looks like it's gonna potentially break out above pretty soon. Although there's no guarantee, right? But so far, 21 moving average is curling up, serving as very, very decent support, and it's just been forming a very, very nice cup and a smaller cup over here. And this is just a very, very kind of attractive looking kind of thing here. The other thing to look at is if I look up the Ichimoku cloud on the monthly, this has already been shown before by me. You have a bullish Tenkan and Kijun cross here on the monthly, which basically tells you, hey, maybe there's a little bit more of a sustainable bull trend that's going to end up happening soon. And the only reminder thing that I would really like to see to really truly confirm and have a really, really strong conviction on CIFR for traders especially is that if you can really seriously flip the monthly Tenkan from kind of like a little bit of resistance over here back to true support. If you can do that, then really would potentially just keep riding the Tenkan up to push the price up a lot higher over time, if you can do that. But the bullish crossover here is also very promising. When the Tenkan over here crosses over the Kijun, then when the leading line over here crosses over the lagging line over here, generally these things are considered to be pretty decent and pretty bullish. So we'll see what happens. Those are just some, a brief look at the monthly here. I'm going to take a look at the weekly to kind of also show you a few things that have happened. The first thing that happened is this candle over here this week does look like a little bit of a dragonfly candle. Kind of look like a hammer dragonfly, slash dragonfly candle like over here, which has marked the bottom, like over here, which also seem to have marked the bottom. So these things are generally, pretty bullish. You also see one over here at the cycle bottom over here with a very, very similar appearance that you see. So for CIFR, especially if it's his personality, that's how it wants to bottom. That's how it wants to bottom. Keeps on forming these dragonfly hammer candles on the way up here. I'm not going to complain. I mean, it looks like it's pretty decent setup here. Again, buy volume tends to be pretty huge. Sell volume tends to be dribbling. Buy volume over here tends to be pretty huge. And this sell volume over the last couple of weeks has really been dribbling. So this looks like a pretty decent, reaccumulation type pattern. And a couple other things too. If you look at the Bollinger Band, you can see that the 20-week moving average has just been pointing up, and it's just bounced off of the 20-week moving average, right? Let's just go ahead and take a look at the rest of the moving averages here. You can see this has got a very, very nice weekly bull trend. 20, above 50, above 100, and all three are pointing up. So this is a pretty decent, setup over here to allow price to ride the bull trend up further as the 20-week moving average continue to maybe even expand a little bit further from the 50, and all three are pointing up. This bull trend had only started recently over the last, half a year to a year or so, and I think that there's a potential for this to just keep going up for, quite some time. Whenever it starts going, it looks like the train might have just been starting to leave the station, maybe kind of hit the first couple stops over here, but it's looking pretty decent. If you look at the weekly Ichimoku cloud, all it did is really broke back above the cloud and back test the cloud a little bit, bounced from it pretty strongly. On the weekly, you also have a little bit of a bull trend over here because the Tenkan is above the Kijun. The leading is got back above the lagging. So all of this stuff is overall has been pointing up to a bullish direction, and I like CIFR. If you look at one other thing that I've been starting to look at a lot more recently, there's also one thing that I think has been pretty favorable for CIFR as well, which is the anchored VWAP. This is the volume weighted average price. Basically tell you from which point, starting at which point, what the average price is for the average holder, right? And it looks like it just had a perfect bounce. If you do a VWAP from the all-time low down here, it looks like it just had a perfect bounce over here. Serve as support, and this is a pretty good indicator to tell us that, hey, people who are into CIFR, the majority of them are actually in profit right now, and they don't look like they want to sell because there's a potential for VWAP to continue just keep going up, and they really don't want to sell because they think the price would probably end up being much higher. If I do the VWAP from the all-time high here, you also see something very, very interesting too. You have a confluence between buyers that bought from all-time high here and end up averaging down, and you end up having the same kind of outcome over here. Both of these are serving as support right now, which is fascinating actually. But all of these indicators so far are looking pretty bullish, and that's why I started a position on CIFR. That's why I posted a couple of weeks ago that I'm starting a position in CIFR, and I'm going to keep buying as long as price is less than $5. And that's what I've been doing. I'm going to talk about a couple other miners here. One that is, unfortunately, has been a pretty big disappointment in terms of price is HUT 8. HUT 8 has been, a laggard on the last cycle here as well, when all the other miners just went berserk in November 2020. HUT 8 just basically just kind of like, yeah, we'll be a little bit more bullish, but it wasn't like a breakout or anything like that, right? So HUT 8 was a little bit of a laggard, and it's also served as a little bit of a laggard this cycle here too. Before that, it had a little bit of a tweezer bottom here and here and here on the monthly. Right now, it looks like it's kind of doing the same thing, although this looks a little bit weaker compared to what it was over here, And right now, it just kind of, unfortunately, is kind of stuck in this whole range over here for about 2 years. Had a deviation up higher, had a deviation lower. But if you look and pull up, a bunch of other indicators, 20-month moving average is flat. Bollinger Band is squeezed a little bit. It can precipitate a giant move sooner or later, but it's still flat. Price still hasn't really spent majority of the time on the upper part of the Bollinger Band. There's really not any major confirmation that this has bottomed, necessarily. Although more than likely it has bottomed over here, but it's just been kind of going sideways for about 2 years. Is a major laggard, and there's no confirmation that a bull trend is developed yet. If you look over at the Ichimoku cloud, you can see that the Tenkan and Kijun hasn't had a bullish cross quite just yet, and both of them are negative sloping. They can potentially point as resistance to prevent price from going up, higher. But with that said, majority of the volume shelf is really around, like $13.50. So if you're able to break back above $13.50 convincingly over the next few months, you might be able to get a pretty decent setup. You might continue to go up a lot higher. But this is just a major laggard, and there's a lot of indicators here that's just not really showing any confirmation, unfortunately. If you look at the weekly, you can see that the weekly also is not really showing any kind of confirmation. On the Ichimoku cloud, it's way below cloud, and there's no weekly trend because the Tenkan hasn't crossed back above Kijun. And if you look at the Bollinger Band, is just kind of like somewhere in the middle. It kind of got rejected by the 20-week moving average over here. Like there's potential downside here as well because it's underneath the median, and median is negatively sloping, so there's always a risk for it to potentially go down further, right? It did have a little bit of a bullish kind of hammer-looking candle over here, kind of like it did over here, but the volume really wasn't that great, so I don't know how convincing this, hammer bottom is, but it did have another hammer bottom over here, so it looks like it's trying to form a bottom, it looks like it's trying to consolidate, but there's so far it's just not enough, confirmation. If you look at the weekly moving average too, you can see that there's an issue here because you don't really have 20 above the other two, 50 and 100. So this is still, relatively, this is still considered to be a bear trend, unfortunately. Not a full bear trend, but it looks like it's like an uncertain bear trend so far. And 20 continues to crawl down, which can continue to serve as potential resistance if it just keeps on crawling down like that, right? Until it breaks above of it convincingly, which so far there's no confirmation it's going to end up doing that. Unfortunate situation for HUD, but I still think that it's probably going to end up doing pretty decent, but it's just not, ready to for me to say that. You look at the VWAP, the average price, volume weighted average price, tons of resistance over here, and it might continue to serve as resistance moving forward from its all-time high. If you draw it from its low, you can see that currently the majority of buyers are underwater. So whenever they find an excuse, they might end up selling. So it's going to end up putting a lot of downward pressure onto HUD as well. In the more immediate future over the next few weeks to a couple of months. But we'll see what happens. A couple of other stocks I also want to talk about. One I do have an ownership on, and this is also big part of it is also based on technicals. Because you see that it's been ranging for quite some time, almost close to a whole year now. But it's been ranging, but the buying volume continues to go up and selling volume continues to be exhausted. Buying volume continues to go up and selling volume continues to be exhausted. So this whole thing right here is building a lot of bullish energy to potentially push up. You do have a little bit of a symmetrical triangle down here, but overall the pattern seems to be more bullish than bearish. If you pull up, just going back to the monthly chart over here, if you pull up some of the traditional indicators, right now price just kind of been stuck between this big giant volume shelf over here. It just hasn't really gone anywhere. But if price is able to convincingly break above, you're really talking about breaking about like anywhere from like $8 to $9, then it can get pretty ballistic afterwards. It looks like it's trying to do that over the whole year, but it just hasn't really been able to find enough energy to push above that right now. It's trying though. If you pull up some of the other traditional things right here, the Bollinger Band of the monthly 20-month moving average very nicely curling up. Bollinger Band, looks like it's not really fully extending yet because price just kind of been going sideways for so long. But it's building up a lot of bullish energy. I think the 20-moving average, as it continues to curl up, it could end up helping the price to kind of push above this range and push up a lot higher, but it can take a few months for it to end up doing that. I could be wrong. This is a Bitcoin miner. When things move, it can get pretty impulsive. But so far, the trend's looking a lot better compared to other things like Riot and BTBT and HUD. Like this just looks a lot better compared to the other ones. The other way to look at it is the Ichimoku clouds. Currently, there's not really any bullish cross for the ticket and Kijun. And also price is currently, unfortunately, underneath the Tenkan, which will probably continue to serve as resistance moving forward. But this is not the end of the world. So far there are some things that are pointing bullish. Some things looks like it's trying to turn into bullishness. So this is not a bad look to it. Now, if you look at the weekly Ichimoku cloud, I might give you a little bit of a different picture. What it's doing right now is just been oscillating between up and down between the Ichimoku cloud over here. But it looks like the oscillation is starting to slow down and starting to find some support at the Ichimoku cloud over here, which is a potentially pretty bullish development over here for that. If you look at a weekly moving average, there is a very nice 20 over 50 over 100 nice bull trend that literally have just started to develop earlier this year. Based on a couple of really green candles over here, really push and bundle all these moving averages all together. And right now you're having a pretty decent bull trend. So because of this bull trend, I'm going to favor bullishness for this, and I do have a position in this, a smaller one, not a small one, but a smaller one compared to some of the other big caps that I have. Bigger caps that I have, they're all small caps. But that's one thing to kind of pay attention to. I haven't done this yet in terms of the average price, the volume weighted average price. I'm going to just go point this out here. There's still going to be a little bit of resistance from the all-time low, right? And there's still a little bit of uncertainty. This is not as strong, definitely far away from being as strong as CleanSpark, definitely far away as being as strong as Mara or even Bitfarms. It's not quite at the same level. But currently, I still like the way it's looking right now. It does look like it has a little bit of a hammer look to it, right off the Ichimoku cloud. So again, these hammer, all these hammers generally is a little bit more favorable. So not a true hammer because you do have a pretty big, candle over here. But so far, I favor this based on the technical indicators that I have over some of the miners that I was just showing you earlier. Another one that people like to talk about is Wolf, TerraWulf. On the monthly, because of how big, how high it was, and because how drastic this drop is moving down, you're going to end up having a lot of lag when it comes to Ichimoku Cloud. But so far, something that's very positive is that even though the Tenkan is pointing down, price seemed to be finding support at this downsloping Tenkan so far. And it's nice to see Tenkan kind of potentially convert from a resistance level over here to support. So there's that going for it, but there's a delay because how vicious prices kind of dropped from like up here in the 30s all the way down to like less than $1. You're gonna end up having a little big lag when it comes to Ichimoku Cloud analysis on the monthly, but that's okay. The Bollinger Band is telling you that good things are happening because you're starting to get a little bit of expansion over here, and the 20-month moving average is crawling up. So you're really actually seeing some pretty decent things that are happening over here in terms of the monthly chart. If you just look at the what it's doing right now, it looks like it's trying to do a cup and maybe a little bit like a handle kind of thing, or just a cup and a smaller cup. Overall, this seems like a reaccumulation range from this accumulation range over here. So I'm actually also very favorable in terms of what I think it's going to do. It does need to. It's spending a lot of time trying to break about this range over here, and there's a little bit of price history of TerraWulf, although it wasn't really a Bitcoin miner before, but there's a little bit of a price history over here that's trying to break above. So I think that price is to pretty much convincingly break about like $4 before you're really able to be convinced of any potentially big bullishness happening. Big giant volume shelf really down here, but if you're able to break about $4, I think there are some pretty crazy things that can happen to TerraWulf that We'll see. You might see what I'm talking about if things pan out the way that I suspect that it might. A couple of things. If you look at the fund flow indicator, there's been a significant decrease in outflow and increase in inflow, and the trend is going up. Even the price has been going sideways for a whole year. You do see a significant increase in inflow that is starting to come in, and this is a pretty small cap miner. It doesn't take a whole lot of whale fund to really come in to push price up a lot higher, and it looks like they're trying to do that. And this might just be at the beginning stage of it. So that's also that you've that going for it. The other thing going for it is if you look at the weekly chart, it also looks like there's some pretty decent accumulation over here on the weekly over here too. But if you look at a weekly chart, it does look like there's still that, ascending triangle look to it that's still intact. Generally, these things are leaning more, bullish than bearish because you're talking about there's increase in demand and the supply above has been constant. You're just basically eating over the supply. Eventually, when the wedge, the ascending triangle ends up being towards the end, there's a lot of pressure build up from the demand side. It usually ends up breaking above. So you have the ascending triangle going for it. In terms of all the other stuff, let's pull up some of the other indicators. In the Ichimoku Cloud, it seems like it's just been kind of oscillating around the cloud, tested the bottom of the cloud, and bounced to the top of the cloud. So these are still pretty constructive price action here. If you look at the weekly moving average, is a bull trend, and the price is currently above a pointing 20-week moving average, and this bull trend just started not long. It was just started a couple of months ago. So there's a lot of things going for it. Buy volume up, sell volume down, buy volume up, sell volume down, buy volume up, sell volume down, reaccumulation, right? That's what I was talking about, the ascending triangle. Very bullish formation. Usually it can break down. If it breaks down, then forget it, don't worry about it. But so far there's no indication of that doing so, and so far it looks like a reaccumulation pattern. So far it looks like things are building up, stacking to the bull side here, as confirmed by these different indicators that I'm showing you here. What about the average price for the regular holder? Let's just put point right there. Well, wrong indicator. Average price. If I just do the average price from the low down here, you can see a very clear support of this level. So the majority of the holders are in profit. So generally, when people are in profit, they're generally a little bit more patient and they like to stay in stock for a little bit longer, see what it does. And this level generally can serve as support from is, cycle low, if you will. So far, quite a few things are going positive for IREN, going positive for Wolf, going positive, very positive for CIFR. For HUT, not so much. Anyway, I just want to spend some time talking about the other miners that I think there's still a lot of interest about. And I own like 3 out of 4 of these miners, so I just want to spend some time talking to you about it. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.